everybody. I'm Anita Holt, and
I'm McFadyen.
and we're here to have a little conversation about voting. I think one of the things that anyone could say is that in the year 2020, the presidential election, everybody, no matter what you think, what you believe, or what you will do, is concerned about being able to get out there and vote, particularly in a pandemic when getting out there is no longer the operative word. So today, we're going to have a conversation about how one prepares, how we can vote, what are our opportunities, and what you need to know. The good news is, I'm not the one who knows everything. Carol and her friends have pulled together pretty much an exhaustive list of what you need to know. This is certainly the overview and answering some of your key questions. In addition, we have resource tables and information in our main community center area, right outside of the gift shop, I believe. Is that right?
Shop. Yes, absolutely.
So,
and after this, at least by midweek, there will be an informational page that is emailed, and it will have links to most of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, because it's very difficult to describe web pages, and it's hard to tell you exactly where to go if you need to hear this again or hear it in some other way. So we're going to just shoot that out with email.
good. One of the things you should know is that we are taping this, and we will play it more than once, but our editing capability is not as good as our taping capability. So you're going to get it with whatever hiccups we have, and hope that you will just bear with us.
They'll need to.
Okay.
They'll need to.
So, one of the things that's always confusing, and it's different in every state, is how do you register? Where do you register? What do we need to do?
So North Carolina has been aware of the problems with the pandemic, and they have truly worked to make this as easy as possible. So this year, there is a slightly different process, which is a wonderful and good thing. But before I tell you about the process, I've got something else I want to tell you about.
Sure.
I want to talk real quickly about how to check to see if you actually already are registered. That's really important, real important. This is an online thing. The Durham County Board of Elections website is absolutely wonderful. It's very helpful. It's easy to navigate. And for you, it's going to be a whole lot easier because you'll have what the teachers I used to work with call cheat sheets. So you will know exactly where to go, and it will be much easier. On the Durham County Board of Elections website, there is a page that you can go to check your registration. Super important. Everybody needs to do that. Even if you know you're registered and feel really confident, look anyway. And let me tell you the things you probably ought to look for. To request the page, there are certain steps that you go through, and I'll send that to you, so I don't have to tell you all of it now. You don't need to panic and think you need to take notes. But on this check your voter registration page, it will have how your name is written for voting purposes. And I'll give you a for instance. John, my husband, has senior at the end of his name. Sometimes. He doesn't always use that. And when we were filling out our absentee ballot request, he didn't know whether that was something that he had put down for registration. So he needed to go check, and this is where he went. When I write checks, I always write with my first name, middle initial, and last name. Never, ever do I write my middle name. But you know what? On the voting registration, my middle name was written out. So it was a good thing that both of us checked, and I suggest everybody do that. It really can make a difference. If the name that you put down on your request is not the name they've got on record, then they're going to have a question about it. So that's something you can do up front, and it really would be a good thing for anybody to do. The next thing that you need to check is your address. People that have just moved to the forest know that they needed to re-register and update information. But if you've been here for a while and you have moved, say from a cottage to an apartment, from an apartment to another apartment, if you have moved to health and wellness, if you have moved across the hall or down the hall in health and wellness, any move means you have a change of address. So check on this registration form and make sure that your address is exactly correct. Okay, so that's really important. And then the other thing I want to touch on just briefly, there is at the bottom of this page an option to look at my sample ballot. And right now, the ballots have not been finalized, and so that is not available. But at the point that it is, it provides really helpful information because you find out which races you perhaps need to do a little bit more homework to find. The national races, I think everybody's probably got down pat, and maybe at the state level, some of them. But that's really something you need to check before you start anything. So that's the first thing. So registration this year, and you register if you need to update material, your address, for instance, or if you're new to Durham County, obviously you're going to register. So if you've not done that, you need to get on the stick and do it. So the two ways that you can do this are through the Department of Motor Vehicles. They have partnered with, go figure, they have partnered with the Board of Elections, and they have a registration option. You probably ought to be really confident with your tech skills before you do it. It's rather convoluted, but that is an option, and if you feel good about your tech skills, that's a really good way to do it because you do it and it's instantaneous. Otherwise, what you can do is to go to the table next to the gift shop in the hallway, and voter registration forms are there. So you fill that out and then you mail it in, or you can take it down to the Board of Elections. That's another option, but those are the two options.
So really, taking it down to the Board of Elections, which is right in downtown Durham, but quite frankly, that's not something, that's almost an unnecessary trip.
It is.
Because if you do it early enough, you can just put it in the mail.
You can put it in. So, one more aside, is that all right?
Sure.
So I saw this during the weekend, and I thought it was really kind of a nice way to look at this. We've been working on flattening the curve for COVID now for months. And we're doing that because we wanted to make certain that hospitals were not absolutely overwhelmed and inundated with sick people. And it obviously has worked. It's made a big difference. Well, this is another opportunity to flatten a curve, but it's an election curve, a voting curve. It is human nature to wait and to procrastinate. Not that either of us have ever done that, I am sure, but some people might have. So if now you immediately, and I mean do this, folks, we really need to do this now. Any of the forms that you need to fill out, go ahead and do that and get them into the Board of Elections. And then you don't need to worry at all about whether your request for a ballot or the ballot when it actually comes out has made it down there. So that's, yes.
All right. Well, that gets to that other part. You get all registered and you hear a lot of, as my younger nieces and nephews would say, a lot of hoopla out there about absentee, mail-in, in-person, blah, blah, blah. How do you do this? And I think that one of the questions that people really have is, One, there's no distinction between absentee or mail-in vote. It just means you have not physically gone to vote.
Right.
But how do you do that here?
Okay, and that really is the very easiest way you can vote. You do this by sitting in a comfortable chair in your cottage or your apartment. It works really well. The forms to request an absentee ballot are on that table next to the gift shop in the hallway. So get the form, and for the request for ballot forms, there are envelopes down there that are pre-addressed. The address of the Board of Elections uses a post office box, of course, and it's the same post office box that they always use, but it says attention, absentee ballot, and that gives them a head start. They know right away, here's a sort we need to make, and that makes things go smoother. So if you're gonna use an absentee ballot, that's what you need to do. You need to start by grabbing one from the table and filling it out right away.
And that's the request for the absentee.
That's a request. North Carolina does not send ballots out. Some states do. North Carolina does not do that. You have to ask for one, and as a matter of fact, you have, for every election that you want an absentee ballot in, you have to request it all over again. This is not a one-shot deal. If I request it now,
Okay.
I have one every time. Not only that, if you request an absentee ballot and get it, and then you decide for whatever reason that you don't want to do it, that's fine. You don't have to. You can vote in early voting or on the day. Just don't vote twice.
Well, no, that is problematic.
That is probably
Maybe not in Chicago, but the rest of the world kind of frowns
that's
on
right,
it.
right,
Yes.
absolutely. So when you get the sheet, it's very straightforward. The form has the things you would expect. Remember, you've already checked your voter registration card, so you know how your name is written. You're going to plug that in at the top, and when you're done with the form, you've got to sign and date at the bottom, and your name should be written in the very same format at the bottom as you used at the top, which of course will match your voter registration form. So it asks for your name, your address, your birth date. For identification purposes, you have two options. You can plug in your social security number, the last four digits of your social security number, or your driver's license number if you've got that. So those are the forms of identification that you need. If the print is too small for you to read, or if you think the lines or boxes are too small, then you can ask a friend or a neighbor to help you fill it out. That's fine. But there is also a place for the friend or the neighbor to write their name and sign it. And that just tells the Board of Election you had somebody write the answers for you. So
So one of the things that has been interesting and that has been very, that they've been very specific about is staff cannot help you do that.
no,
So it has to be a friend or a neighbor,
absolutely.
your child or whatever,
Right.
but it cannot be a member of the Forest and Duke staff that assists you with that.
Absolutely, there would be a huge problem with that. One of there are multiple ways you can return this form, and I thought about it actually as I was coming down here today. One of them is fax. Some people here have a fax app on their computer, and so they could actually fax in their request for an absentee ballot. But I thought, suppose somebody thinks, I'll ask Robin, or I'll ask somebody in the office. You can't do that. You would get everybody in trouble, and I think you might not have a chance to vote. That's what I think.
Well, let's not create that problem.
Yeah.
So you've got your request for an absentee ballot, and so that, I assume, is going to then come to you in the mail.
Right.
And they're expecting to distribute those when?
September 4th, they began to go out. Going back to that request for an absentee ballot form, when you send it in, they do not tell you we've gotten it. Good for you. You did it.
Oh,
If you're a little bit antsy about that, I was, you can email them or call. Actually, I think emailing probably might be better. And you can ask if they got it, and they will tell you. Over the weekend, Annie Seffold said that she and Al had both done their request for absentee ballot, and they emailed the Board of Elections just to make sure that it had arrived. And they had a very prompt answer, and whoever whatever poll worker it was, said, "Thank you for including the information that helped us look this up quickly." So if you email and ask if your request for absentee ballot has been received, then put your full name, the name that you used on your form, your date of birth, and your telephone number. And that helps them find it more quickly and respond. And we want to save those folks any extra step possible. So that's a really good play.
wow, that's good. So the system is working, as it were.
It is. And right now, I asked, and as of last week, there are no delays. It's the normal processing time they have said is between 48 and 72 hours, which is not a bad turnaround. So you surely give them at least that much time. You probably pad it with a couple of extra days. But right now, there's not a delay.
So it seems like as with everything, the earlier it's done, the better.
Right.
And so when exactly then absentee voting, once you've received your ballot, that starts when? And how?
Well, they will start mailing the absentee ballots out on the 4th of September. I was told that they expected a, quote, large volume, and I bet that they are right. And how quickly that comes, I guess it just depends on the volume distributed, how fast that's going to be. So it should be, if you go ahead and request an absentee ballot, you will be closer to the front of the line now than if you wait. So the bottom line is, do not wait for any of these dates. Do it as quickly as possible. And then when the absentee ballot comes, fill it out that day. Do it. Because you know what happens if you look at it and think, gosh, I've got to get to that. You don't want to take any chances that you're going to join that line of procrastinators.
So you got your absentee ballot form, you filled it out, and there are multiple ways that you can get it back in. But again, what's the safest? As you're saying, it's really mailing it.
The safest is mailing it. It really is. If you could turn it in at early voting, but you put yourself in a room a large room with a lot of people. So that's not optimal. If you're concerned about your safety, that truly is not optimal.
There are some people who are so absolutely insistent on exercising the franchise, as it were.
Yes.
And so deciding that, well, I'll early vote because I need to go. I need to go pull a lever, punch a thing, push a jab. That they just need to do that to feel that it's right. And certainly that's one thing that we have a choice about.
It is.
But that here in North Carolina is called early voting, is it not?
It is called early voting. It actually is a really strange thing. The technical name is One Stop, No Excuse Absentee Voting, and that pretty much sums it up. It's almost everything, really. You could turn your absentee ballot in then. If you haven't registered, you actually could register then, or you could just vote then. And in the past, I've gone to early voting twice, and it worked well. This time I'm not willing to do that. I'm really not. But that is an option. And early voting runs from the 15th of October to the 31st of October. And the different thing about early voting is that there are 14 different locations in Durham County that you can go to. On the day, on regular voting day, we all have one assigned place to go. And you cannot vote anywhere else, but here you can choose. And the closest one to us is on Garrett Road, and it's a mouthful. It is the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship on Garrett Road. Their parking is very easy, and they have a large, I guess it's a parasol kind of thing, a very large room, so they can spread out. But still, that's not in your home, and that's probably not the safest option. So.
No, I have done early voting there, and yes, parking was good, and it was a great lunch hour trip, but this is not the year to test that out.
This is not the year. It is absolutely not. And that certainly is true and more for voting on November the 3rd.
Well, and there'll still be someone who will wake up and say, that's what I'm doing.
Right.
Because I got the ballot and I didn't do it and I did this and I didn't do it, but I'm going there.
Yes.
And so on that particular day, we have one polling place where we can vote. Is that right?
And it's Forest View Elementary School. It's on Mount Sinai Road. And I don't know, I guess it's maybe, 3 or 4 miles from here. It's not far. The traffic usually is a problem. That's something you really have to think about. They worked on parking the last time we were there, and that's bad. But it is a school. I do not know whether the kids will be there that day. It's my bet that they won't, but I don't know. But you can count on people. I mean, we've all seen pictures of the lines. So,
and I know that this year they really are working hard to get good volunteers to handle the polling places and making sure that we have enough, because so many of the people who have traditionally volunteered are people that are at risk with comorbidities. So they're trying to pull in an expanded pool. I do know that people ask if you're required to have identification or any specific identification to vote, and that is
absolutely not this year, unless there is a court case in process, and I guess it is possible, though I would think the chances would be slim to none that a decision would come down and change it. I think it's virtually too late. So no, and it's just like usual when you go in. The poll worker will ask you your name, and again, that's where if you've looked it up on the registration page, you know exactly how you're listed, and you have to tell her that, because if you don't have that name, that's going to be exactly in their format. John's got to have the senior, and I got to have my whole middle name there. So.
Yeah, I always know when somebody my middle name has an unusual spelling, and so whenever somebody writes it the American way, it's like, no, that's not me. So, this is certainly, it's momentous. I know that people are very concerned, and I don't want people to take risks. So to the extent that they understand how to make sure that they secure their ability to vote, that they're registered, that they fill out and request an absentee ballot, to do that in a timely way, and then go ahead and vote is important. I also know that we will provide limited support to the extent that we are able, so that, and there will be limited transportation, particularly in early voting. So you get to social distance in a Subaru. I don't know how that works, but it will. And to the extent that we can do that, and try to manage all the options. I also wanted residents to know that Jennifer Key and her team are working with everyone in the Health and Wellness Center who needs to register, do the absentee ballot request. And our encouragement there is for everyone, regardless of whether it's assisted or skilled, to absentee ballot. We just don't know what our status will be then, and that's a risk we don't want to take.
Absolutely. And Jennifer Key is an amazing woman, and so she will make sure that's done. I know she is a phenomenal resource.
She is a powerhouse. We were talking about making sure we had some people who could volunteer, because again, the things we would normally do to be assistive as staff, we cannot do. But again, finding a safe way and a means to assist our residents so that they have the help they need is what we're working on now, and making sure that anyone who wants to vote, anyone who can vote and wants to vote, will have the opportunity to do so. We also are working quietly on encouraging our staff and any resident who knows a staff member who might be a young first-time voter, who may not be registered, etc. One of the things we'd like to do is we're encouraging registration, and if you come back with proof of having registered to vote, we're going to drop your name in a raffle if you're a staff member, and you could win an iPad and a year of internet. And if you come back proving that you have voted, we're going to raffle off another one.
Oh, wow.
Because, you know, one of the things that kids kind of miss, and certainly they haven't had this last year in school to hammer at home, is that you do not give up your ability to vote. It is a hard-earned right, and certainly it's a bit of civics that they may not do like they used to, but we're doing anyway.
Yes.
And I hope I haven't broken any rules, but I don't work for the feds, so it's not a half-jack thing.
No, it's fine. It's
Okay.
fine. Voting is a right, but it is a privilege.
Yes.
It's your responsibility to exercise that privilege. It truly is. It's very, very important.
As my grandmother used to say, I don't care who you vote for, but you better get out and vote.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
we're going to show this a couple of times to all the residents via channel 1390. I think it's in our calendar for the week. I know that we've received some additional information from the League of Women Voters. I don't know how we'll use some of that. The best resource table has been created by our own residents. Carol, thank you. You have become like our local expert, and we appreciate that. And then I think Wes was also helping you, so it had the good once over by the lawyer. And there's this great little trifold with a picture of John smiling at the mailbox, dropping in his absentee.
Yes.
So it is really a community endeavor.
It is. And Daniel Lundmeyer is helping this too.
Oh,
So there's
excellent.
3 of us.
Oh, wonderful.
So that
So,
helps. It does.
but above all else, we hope that you're excited. I hope the information has been helpful, and that if you look out this week, we should have another fact sheet coming towards the end of the week with some of the links to get to the places you need to go. And to the extent possible, when we can provide it in paper for those who don't use their computer, we will do so. In the meantime, keep reading, don't get too mad at the news, and absolutely vote. Thank you.
Thanks.
You know that great saying, it's never over till it's over?
Absolutely.
Well, there was one more thing. Last year, we know we were busy, we found out that you had to have a witness. And that was when we first found out that we couldn't be a staff, be as helpful as we planned. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
So this year, in deference to the pandemic, instead of having 2 witnesses, you need 1. And in the past, you have needed to have a notary to notarize it. That's not true this year. So what you need on your absentee ballot is the signature of someone that has watched you fill a ballot out. And I'm not talking about over your shoulder or up close. Absolutely not. Ask a friend or a neighbor. Let them come stand in your doorway. You stand at your kitchen counter and you fill out the ballot then. They just have to know that you filled it out. It's for your protection as much as anything. You want to be able to have proof. I filled my ballot out. And they want to have the proof that you filled your ballot out, and this extra witness tells that. And the witness, again, I've never voted absentee ballot before, but from what I have read, the witness and you will sign on the outside of the envelope that the Board of Elections sends the ballot in. So that makes the witness requirement worked really well this year. It's just for this election. But this is the time they really need to have that. It helps.
All right, so just stand at the door. I think that's the real phrase, I need to lay eyes on you.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's it. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah.